condemn the Iranian attacks on countries in the region in the strongest terms. Well, of course, all of this began earlier on today. And we also heard earlier on today from President Trump, who was talking to the world's media about the reasons behind this latest attack. He urged Iranians to take over the government. He said this will probably be your last chance for generations. Let's talk now to our State Department correspondent, Tom Bateman, who joins us live now from Washington. Tom, just bring us up to date with what we heard from President Trump earlier. And then if you could talk me through the reaction since then.
Well, I think, what was fundamentally clear from President Trump's address during the night from Florida was that we are now in this uncharted territory of the most far-reaching and potentially consequential form of military attack by the US and Israel, compared to some of the things that have been speculated in the run-up to all of this, because very clearly President Trump is talking about regime change, talking about Iranians taking over the government of the country, which, and certainly some of the briefings, I think, coming from Israeli officials about leadership targeting in this initial wave of strikes. And of course, we don't have any sense of what they're saying the outcome of that is. But very clearly now we're at that sort of far end of the military options that were being presented to President Trump in the days and weeks in the run up to this. And of course, that comes with huge risks attached, not just domestically for the president, but also, of course, in the region itself. And we're already seeing that play out with Iranian retaliation across the Gulf, in those Gulf Arab countries, targeting US bases and facilities there. And I think President Trump trying to get in early, the sense that acknowledging there is likely to be loss of American life if this continues at this scale and goes on for many days. And I think sort of in that sense, he's trying to preempt the very strong criticism that's already emerging from Congress, mostly, of course, from Democrats at the moment, who are saying this is totally unauthorized by Congress and risk destabilizing the entire region, but also from at least one Republican in Congress so far, who is pointing out that this attack has not been authorized by Congress.
And there won't be, will there? There will also be Republicans who in the past have been very clear they don't want to get involved in another war. So what are they going to be saying about this?
Yeah, and I mean, President Trump's always acutely aware of what his base thinks and what public opinion is suggesting. And I mean, polling has consistently shown large amounts of opposition to the possibility of another US foreign entanglement in the Middle East. It was exactly the kind of thing that President Trump campaigned on in the election, saying he would not do, and exactly the thing he is now doing jointly with the Israelis. I thought it was interesting and important that in his address, he again used this notion of imminent attack to US soil, which he talked about in his State of the Union speech. He's mentioned this a couple of times now in the run up to this, suggesting that the Iranians are close to having an intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the United States. And he referenced that again in the speech. I think that is, again, trying to sort of preempt what he knows the criticism will be and is already emerging from Congress, that there simply isn't the grounds on presidential executive authority without the authorization of Congress to launch this strike. And I think that's why he's getting that in there. The problem with all of that is that it's just simply not backed by the intelligence assessments, an unclassified intelligence assessment last year suggesting that the Iranians were at least a decade away from developing an intercontinental ballistic missile that could reach the US. So not backed up by the evidence there. And I think that is why, for many Americans, they're going to look at this and be really concerned that there is a rerun of the playbook in the run-up to the Second Gulf War, where, of course, the notion of imminent threat was with the justification for war, which turned out to be false, of course. the other side of all of this is President Trump's backers, particularly his strongest cheerleader in Congress, Lindsey Graham, who's coming out and saying this is going to amount to the liberation of Iran. That this is about taking out, the potential global threat of the Iranians developing a nuclear weapon. That President Trump's supporters are saying they've given every chance to the Iranians in the negotiations to try to solve. But this is, we talked about at the beginning of this year, the roll of the dice that President Trump took with the raid on Venezuela, snatching Nicolas Maduro. He was warned by all accounts by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, that this strategy with Iran would include much greater risks of a completely different scale of magnitude, and that is the route that President Trump has taken.
Tom, thank you very much indeed for that. Tom Bateman, State Department correspondent in Washington. Let's now bring in someone from the Missouri University of Science and Technology, Dr. Mehrzad Boroujerdi, who is an Iranian exile there. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us on BBC News. And let me just ask you, first of all, for your reaction as part of the huge Iranian diaspora in the United States, your reaction to what we're seeing today. Do you welcome this move by the US, or are you worried?
I think it's fair to say that the Iranian public, and both inside and outside the country, are mixed, have been polarized. There are people who hold the government in Iran responsible, right, because of its intransigence in the terms of the nuclear negotiations and bringing the country to this stage. And then there are those who are really concerned about the impact of this war, right? How long will it last? What will happen to the citizenry? Will there be chaos? Would there be food scarcity? What will happen to the basic economic infrastructure of the country in the long term? What is clear to me is that, since President Trump has mentioned that he has called for the overthrow of the government, this shows that this conflict is no longer about nuclear negotiations or making concession on this ground or the other. So we are really on the verge of a huge new development with a lot of uncertainty ahead of us.
Let's talk a little bit about what would fill a power vacuum in Iran. I know that there is a lot of talk amongst Iranian people around the world about Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, who of course was exiled and died in exile in Egypt. Do you feel there is a groundswell of support behind him? There doesn't seem to be any other viable option for Iran within the country.
Right. So there is no doubt that Reza Pahlavi is the best known, perhaps best organized member of the Iranian opposition. We saw his name being chanted in both inside and outside Iran after the recent massacre by the government. The question really is the following. Aerial bombardment by US and Israel that can definitely weaken the state, right, or even lead to its overthrow. The question is that unless the Americans and the Israelis have boots on the ground, the expectation.
All right, let's look at what's going on in Twitter world, also known as X. United States and Israel launched joint military strikes on Iran. Let's see what the president had to say.
And major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating. A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people, eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died.
I just came on.
Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes.
It'll be an interesting time.
It's been mass terror,
and
we're not going to put up with it any longer. From Lebanon to Yemen and Syria to Iraq, the regime has armed, trained, and funded terrorist militants proxy Hamas that launched the monstrous October 7th attacks on Israel, slaughtering more than 1,000 innocent people, including 46 Americans, while taking 12 of our citizens hostage. It was brutal, something like the world has never seen before.
Here we are.
Iran is the world's #1 state sponsor of terror and just recently killed tens of thousands of its own citizens on the street as they protested. It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon. I'll say it again. They can never have a nuclear weapon. That is why in Operation Midnight Hammer last June, we obliterated the regime's nuclear program at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. After that attack, we warned them never to resume their malicious pursuit of nuclear weapons, and we sought repeatedly to make a deal. We tried. They wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. Again, they wanted to do it. They didn't want to do it. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to practice evil. But Iran refused, just as it has for decades and decades. They've rejected every opportunity to renounce their nuclear ambitions, and we can't take it anymore. Instead, they attempted to rebuild their nuclear program, continue developing long-range missiles that can now threaten our very good friends and allies in Europe, our troops stationed overseas, and could soon reach the American homeland. Just imagine how emboldened this regime would be if they ever had and actually were armed with nuclear weapons as a means to deliver their message. For these reasons, the United States military is undertaking a massive and ongoing operation to prevent this very wicked, radical dictatorship from threatening America and our core national security interests. We are going to destroy their missiles and raise their missile industry to the ground. It will be totally, again, obliterated. We're going to annihilate their Navy. We're going to ensure that the region's terrorist proxies can no longer destabilize the region or the world and attack our forces and no longer use their IEDs or roadside bombs, as they are sometimes called, to so gravely wound and kill thousands and thousands of people, including many Americans. And we will ensure that Iran does not obtain a nuclear weapon. It's a very simple message. They will never have a nuclear weapon. This regime will soon learn that no one should challenge the strength and might of the United States Armed Forces. I built and rebuilt our military in my first administration, and there is no military on earth even close to its power, strength, or sophistication. My administration has taken every possible step to minimize the risk to U.S. personnel in the region. Even so, and I do not make this statement lightly, the Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties. That often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death.
I love it.
Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want.
Good.
So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
All right, let's see what else is here. Even Fetterman is saying Operation Epic Fury. President Trump has been willing to do what's right, necessary to produce real peace in the region. Border peace. Okay, I have something else to show you. Well, we were listening to this earlier, but let's go see. Let's go here. Let's look at what's happening on the ground. So this is so most internet has been shut down in Iran. Iran cams will return when the internet is restored, so we don't have those cameras. These are in Israel, so there's nothing really there to see what's going on in Iran. Let's go see what AP has. AP, this is a live feed in Iran, I believe. Live feed of what is. This is just an AP live feed. So they're not showing too much. It doesn't look like we're in a lull. Not sure actually where this is. All right, let's go to live updates here. Fox Now or whatever.
The Iranian regime seeks to kill. The lives of courageous American heroes may be lost, and we may have casualties.
What I played a minute
that
ago.
often happens in war. But we're doing this not for now. We're doing this for the future, and it is a noble mission. We pray for every service member as they selflessly risk their lives to ensure that Americans and our children will never be threatened by a nuclear-armed Iran. We ask God to protect all of our heroes in harm's way, and we trust that with his help, the men and women of the armed forces will prevail. We have the greatest in the world, and they will prevail. To the members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the armed forces, and all of the police, I say tonight that you must lay down your weapons and have complete immunity, or in the alternative, face certain death. So lay down your arms. You will be treated fairly with total immunity, or you will face certain death. Finally, to the great, proud people of Iran, I say tonight that the hour of your freedom is at hand. Stay sheltered. Don't leave your home. It's very dangerous outside. Bombs will be dropping everywhere. When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations. For many years, you have asked for America's help, but you never got it. No president was willing to do what I am willing to do tonight. Now you have a president who is giving you what you want. So let's see how you respond. America is backing you with overwhelming strength and devastating force. Now is the time to seize control of your destiny and to unleash the prosperous and glorious future that is close within your reach. This is the moment for action. Do not let it pass. May God bless the brave men and women of America's armed forces. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless you all. Thank you.
And that was a statement posted to social media overnight there from President Trump. And that's the latest we have heard from the Trump administration. We had gotten word that there was going to be some sort of a press conference this morning. We do know now that is not going to happen here today. But either way, we're going to continue to monitor the White House, see if we're going to get any additional statements, as we have heard from several lawmakers reacting here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us for our coverage here. My name is Christy Matino. I want to take you out to this live look here at Tel Aviv. If you are just waking up with us here on Live Now from Fox, President Trump confirming there in that video message that the U.S. is carrying out major combat operations in Iran. In that video.
Since the beginning, absolutely. I think there are a lot of us who are hoping that this thing will end with the overthrow of this brutal regime, and that 5 or 6 million Iranians who have left the country since 1979 with chance to go back and visit their relatives and their places of upbringing.
Okay, Dr. Meresod, thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's been good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's just bring you some new lines that we're getting in the last few minutes. We've heard from Iranian state media. This is through our colleagues at BBC Monitoring. Iranian state media have denied reports that senior political officials and the country's army chief were killed in that wave of US-Israeli strikes. Remember, we believe that they were targeted in those strikes. We're now hearing, according to a post on X by the executive deputy of the president, Masoud Pezeshkian, that he is safe. The president's son, Youssef Pezeshkian, has written on Telegram and said this time their assassination attempts have not succeeded. Again, it's difficult to independently verify this. This is what we're hearing from our colleagues at BBC Monitoring, who are literally monitoring the situation online. The army has also denied the death of its commander, Major General Amir Hatami. And the hardline news agency FAR says that Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bakir Kalibov and the head of the Supreme National Security Council, Ali Larijani, also remain unharmed. Now, it's unclear whether these men were the targets of the missile attacks, but we do know that the Israel Defense Forces have said that strikes in Tehran did target locations where senior political and security figures were gathered. People a chance to oust a terrorist regime. That is the very latest from Vladimir Zelensky.
Look at this.
The initial targeting.
That's right, Griff. But before I get to those initial targets, we can that there were sirens not only in Bahrain, but also Qatar. That is significant because it suggests incoming missiles into both of those countries where the U.S. military has key bases. In Bahrain, of course, home to the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. We are hearing reports that there is smoke rising on the horizon in the vicinity of that base. We also understand that, again, Qatar would be a logical target because Al Udeid would be the largest U.S. air base in the Middle East. They obviously have removed a lot of the airframes and warplanes from that base in anticipation of this. Americans who are living in Bahrain, UAE, Qatar have been told to shelter in place, and the U.S. military had dispersed a lot of its personnel. Remember, there were about 30,000 to 40,000 American troops at bases across the Middle East, but the U.S. military over the last 2 months have been drawing down and reorienting those individuals. Now, here are some of the targets that we can confirm in these dozens of strikes that have taken place in the last 3.5, 4 hours. The Iranian parliament was targeted. The National Supreme Council was targeted. Ministry of Intelligence, Iranian Atomic Energy Agency. Cyber attacks have taken place on news agencies such as IRNA, which is the state-run news organization. The internet is out in Iran, as far as we know, so it's going to be very difficult for civilians in Iran to get the information about what's occurring right now. There are unconfirmed reports that Iran's defense minister was targeted, as well as the head of the judiciary. That would be significant because the head of the judiciary would have delivered many death sentences, thousands of death sentences to protesters over the years. So it would be logical that he would have been a target. But what's clear, Griff, from these initial strikes is that this is an attempt at regime change. We've talked in recent days about how broad would this mission be? Would it be only the nuclear sites? Would it be the nuclear sites plus the ballistic missile storage sites, which Israel was very concerned about and had pressed the U.S. to include as part of the targeting? Now it is extremely clear that this is a targeted, the strikes are targeting Iran's leadership, including the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who Lucas Tomlinson was reporting took power over 37 years ago. He took over in 1989. He's the longest serving leader in the Middle East. And his compound was targeted in the early hours, in maybe even the first strike that took place. That is symbolic and that is significant. And you heard the president appeal to the Iranian people, saying that this moment is a moment in history that you should seize. After the bombing stops, he appealed to them to rise up, and he said, the hour of your freedom is now. He said, stay in your house until we are finished, but this is the moment that you can take over your government and seize power. That is significant because we weren't sure that this was going to be a regime change operation, but it's very clear from the initial set of targets that that is exactly what it is, Griff.
Jennifer, just as you were starting your reporting there, we're seeing on the wires that Bahrain is confirming the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet has been targeted by a missile attack, and the president adding in that video message that American casualties are a real possibility here as we wake up now and learn of this major joint combat operation between the U.S. and Israel is launched. This could pose a significant threat to Americans in this operation.
I think what's significant, Griff, is that the American people and even the president himself have been used to carrying out some very significant military operations in which there were no U.S. casualties. The operation in Venezuela last summer, the days of striking during the 12-day war, targeting the nuclear sites. It's significant that the U.S. has not put ground troops in the Middle East. So that is a big difference from the 2003 Iraq War. There's been no large buildup of any sort of ground forces. That is not part of the planning or part of the calculation. This is going to be an air and Navy operation. But again, the Iranians, while they may have been stunned and surprised in the initial hours, and it took them about 3.5 to 4 hours before they launched their first missiles toward Israel and now toward the U.S. base in Bahrain and as well as in Qatar. They were likely, the command and control was likely disrupted in those initial hours. There was likely some electronic warfare that caused it so they couldn't figure out which way anything was coming and how to, and then it was difficult to fire those missiles. But now you can expect in the coming hours and days, the Iranians have a large store of missiles, and they have mobile missile launchers in the west. And at the narrowest point in the Strait of Hormuz, it's just 21 miles across. So those cruise missiles can be fired and ballistic missiles, and it takes literally minutes before they reach their target. So that is very hard to defend against, even if you have Patriot missile defense systems and THAAD missile systems. And so the U.S. military had done a really good job of drawing down at those bases. I doubt there were more than a few dozen people at the Bahrain headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. So again, the president preparing the American people that there could be casualties, and that that's unfortunately a side effect of an outcome of war. But again,
Bahrain's capital, Manama. Bahrain's confirmed there have been attacks inside its territory. This is the moment a missile hit the U.S.'s Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain's capital, Manama. Bahrain's National Communications Center has confirmed other attacks targeting site borders and has condemned those attacks. Let's bring in Rory Challens in Amman, Jordan, for more on what's been happening in the region and the reaction, Rory.
This is Jordan. That's the Fifth Fleet headquarters.
Yeah, well, certainly for people here in Amman, in the capital of Jordan, it was a pretty noisy morning with the sounds of jet fighters you could hear quite clearly up in the sky, and then repeated booms, presumably air defense or similar things reverberating around the skyline. We have heard from the Jordanian military that 2 ballistic missiles were intercepted and successfully neutralized by the Jordanian air defense systems. And indeed, there has been footage that emerged of some flaming debris that apparently landed on a house or near a house in the Marj al-Hammam area of the capital, but no injuries have been reported. Now, Jordan, like many parts of this region, many countries in this region, hosts U.S. military forces. Now, the Jordanians have a big airbase, Muwafaq Salti Air Base, which is about 100 kilometers east of the capital. That has lots and lots of U.S. planes, or certainly did very recently. 60 to 70 combat aircraft were documented there. There were Chinese satellite pictures that showed very clearly where they were on the air apron and on the strips of that airbase. The Iranians put out an AI video showing that this airbase was going to be targeted in the event of any attack by the United States or by Israel on Iran. And this has been part of Iran's wider pressure campaign against countries like Jordan, like UAE, like Saudi Arabia, etc., to basically tell them, if you are hosting US military capabilities, regardless of whether you are letting those military capabilities be used in any attack on Iran, it doesn't matter to Iran. Iran will still see those as legitimate targets and will strike back. Now, I have to say, for the moment, Jordan seems to have got away relatively unscathed, but this is very early on in this conflict, and things are certainly able to escalate. Other countries in the region, we've been seeing attacks in Bahrain and UAE, in Saudi Arabia and Iraq as well, are not quite have not escaped as quite as unscathed as Jordan has at the moment. But I think we have heard, we understand that there could be fresh barrages on the way at any moment.
Rory Challens, live for us in Amman, Jordan. Rory, thank you.
Goal of the operation: to put an end to the threat from the Ayatollah regime. At this moment, the IDF is striking targets of the repressive regime, facilities of the Revolutionary Guards and the besieged, and together with the United States, sites of ballistic missiles that threaten both Israel and U.S. forces. This operation will continue for as long as necessary. For 47 years, the evil regime in Iran has called death to Israel, death to America. It has crushed the citizens of its own country, it has cast fear upon the peoples of the region, and it has spread a sprawling network of terror throughout the entire world. It has invested vast resources to develop atomic bombs and tens of thousands of missiles intended, as it defined it, to erase Israel from the map of the world. It also armed the terror proxies around us, in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Judea and Samaria, and it shed our blood. But if anyone needed further proof of the murderous nature of the Ayatollah regime, they received it last month. Because we all saw how this regime of terror in Tehran carried out an unprecedented mass massacre of the citizens of Iran itself. It murdered in cold blood thousands of children, adults, and elderly. Tens of thousands were imprisoned, tortured, humiliated. And why? Only because they asked for a life of freedom and dignity for themselves. In the War of Revival and in Operation Dogs of War, our heroic soldiers struck a crushing blow to the Ayatollah regime and its proxies, but the wounded predator did not cease its attempts to rehabilitate itself for that same goal to destroy us. In recent months, the tyrants in Iran have been plotting to rebuild their nuclear and missile capabilities and hide them underground, where we cannot harm them. If we do not stop them now, they will be immune. And for this purpose, their representatives in negotiations are trying to buy time in futile and deceitful negotiations with our American friends. But the tyrants in Iran made a fatal mistake, because the United States does not buy their lies. And we will not sit idly by while the shadow of annihilation hangs over us, and therefore we have